What they do on a daily basis, their effort is tireless and of such importance to the local communities that they serve. I became a Methuen firefighter 33 years ago. At that time, there was no individual or organization available to assist the crime victims, the injured, the people displaced due to fire, and other catastrophic events, or those left behind after tragic death. Once the duties of the police or firefighters were complete, those in need of additional services and support were left to fend for themselves. We as public safety professionals felt a hollow void following an incident. Although we did everything in our power to bring the incident to an end and to prevent any further injury, damage, or death, we were very limited with acquiring the additional assistance that the victims required. Our resources and training were limited at best. On October 6, 1992, I was promoted to lieutenant in the Methuen Fire Department. I was assigned to Engine 5 at the East End Fire Station. Engine 5 is located at the intersection of East and Swan Streets, a very busy area. In the early 90s, Engine 5 was by far the busiest engine company, responding to approximately 500 emergency calls a year. Being a new lieutenant and company officer, I was even more troubled that there was very little further support that we could offer following an incident. What few services that were available were either difficult to obtain or there was substantial cost involved. There had to be a way to get these victims of tragedy the support and direction that they so needed. Then, almost 1 year to the day following my promotion to lieutenant, I met a woman who had recently returned from California. She had been spending time with an organization that specialized in helping the victims of tragedy put their lives back together following a crisis. The organization was operated by trained volunteers and supported through donations. The name of this organization was the Trauma Intervention Program, and the name of this woman was Jan Lindy. Jan explained to me that she had created the Trauma Intervention Program in the Merrimack Valley, and it was her hope that it could be as successful as the program that she was introduced to in California. She further explained that her group would serve the police and fire departments of Methuen, Lawrence, Andover, and North Andover, as well as the local hospitals. I was skeptical, but willing to give them a try. It sounded like just what we needed in public safety. I would certainly assist in any way possible and hope for the best. A couple of weeks following our meeting, Engine 5 was dispatched to a report of a possible unattended death in a private single-family home. Upon our arrival, we were met at the front door by a frantic, middle-aged female. She stated that she had just arrived at her elderly mother's home for a visit and found her unresponsive on the floor next to the bed. We asked her to wait in the living room while we checked on her mother. It was quite obvious to us that her mother was deceased and had passed away sometime earlier. There was nothing that we could do for the deceased woman. There may, however, be something that we could do for her surviving daughter. I peeked out of the bedroom and into the living room, where I could see that the daughter was still sobbing uncontrollably. I radioed the dispatcher to call tip and request a response to the address. I assumed it would take a while for someone to arrive. I re-entered the living room and approached the deceased woman's daughter to carry out the unpleasant task of informing her that her mother had passed away. While trying to console her without very much success, another woman entered the house. I assumed it was a family member. I remember feeling relieved when this person didn't appear upset, but remained calm and confident. She approached me and introduced herself as a tip volunteer and asked what she could do to help. I was surprised but relieved that she arrived so quickly. I brought the daughter and the volunteer to the couch to have some quiet private time together. After a few minutes, the volunteer asked me if there was any way the daughter could have a moment to say goodbye to her mom. I looked over at the daughter. She was now completely calm and composed. I asked the volunteer to give us a few moments. My crew and I lifted the woman up off the floor, placed her in her bed. We then pulled the covers up and fixed the bed to appear that she was sleeping. The daughter entered the room with the volunteer, and we allowed them some private time. When they returned to the living room, I could not believe the calmness that had come over this woman. She and the volunteer had developed such a close bond, it was incredible. The volunteer informed me that she would be staying with her as long as needed, and that we could leave when we were finished with our duties. She assured me that she would assist with the needs of the daughter, as well as other family members who were beginning to arrive. I left the scene with a feeling of comfort and reassurance that I had not previously experienced. I was immediately sold and became an instant supporter of the trauma intervention program. I immediately wrote a letter of thanks, appreciation, and support to the TIP Executive Director, J.N. Lane. I began to have conversations with all the other officers, dispatchers, and firefighters of the Methuen Fire Department to share my experience. As the days, weeks, months, and years passed, the Methuen Fire Department called upon the services of TIP more and more regularly. Before long, it became second nature to call for their assistance. So much so that when a dispatcher has reason to believe that the incident he or she is sending apparatus to may require the services of TIP, they will actually ask that the first arriving personnel request their assistance as soon as possible. This is just one of the thousands of stories that the local fire, police, and hospitals have to prove that TIP really works. This organization has filled a void that was truly needed. These volunteers really are the ones who help the victims of tragedy pick up the pieces. When people are having the absolute worst days of their lives, it is the TIP volunteers who show up to support these people and help give them some direction. Firefighters, police officers, and hospitals respond to emergencies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter what time of the day or night, but that's our job, it's what we do. TIP volunteers also respond to emergencies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter what time, day or night. The difference is that these are volunteers. They do not get paid. These are people who are doing this over and above their jobs and their private lives. These are people who are spending an incredible amount of time training, meeting, and researching to make sure that they are giving and doing everything possible in the most professional and proper manner. These are people who are doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. TIP volunteers are also there to assist each other when tragedy strikes. There have certainly been times when TIP volunteers had to turn to each other for support when tragedy strikes each other. Of course, firefighters and police officers are not immune to their own tragedy. We have certainly had our own unfortunate events. I'd like to share with you a personal experience where the members of the Methuen Fire Department personally benefited from the assistance of TIP. Early in the morning on Wednesday, December 21st, 2011, Methuen firefighter Rob George was suddenly and tragically taken from us. At approximately 4 a.m., Rob's wife, Sandy, made a frantic 911 call for assistance to her husband, who was unresponsive. Immediately, a Methuen Fire Department ambulance, rescue company, paramedics, and Methuen police were dispatched to Rob and Sandy's home, which is right around the corner from the fire station. Despite the heroic efforts of his fellow firefighters, paramedics, Methuen police, and Holy Family Hospital emergency room personnel, Rob was gone. He was taken at much too young an age, far too early in his career. The cause of Rob's death was a sudden heart attack. Rob was a young 46 years old and in terrific shape. I remember being awoken by an early morning phone call informing me that Rob had been transported to the Holy Family Hospital emergency room and that the prognosis was not good. Waiting in the hospital, I watched as many of our firefighters streamed into the emergency room. The looks on their faces ranged from deep sadness, shock, disbelief, and anguish. I took comfort in knowing that a TIP volunteer was with the family at Rob's bedside, offering comfort and support. TIP volunteers also offered their assistance to the firefighters and remained with us every day right through the funeral. For this, I am forever indebted to J.N. and her staff. Throughout the past 20 years, the trauma intervention program has grown to become such a vital component of our public safety team. When our job is over, theirs is just beginning. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. Thank you, Dr. Landry, for bringing this wonderful program to the Merrimack Valley. And thank you, the volunteers, for being part of this very important team.